Mass-produced prints of Italian artist Bruno Amadio's Crying Boy became linked to mysterious house fires across Britain in the 1980s. The Yorkshire Post reported multiple cases where homes burned completely while the painting remained undamaged. Firefighters noted finding these prints untouched amid destruction, some refusing to have them in their homes. The tabloid The Sun launched a campaign to destroy the cursed paintings, collecting and burning thousands. Fire investigators later suggested the print's varnish coating contained fire retardant, explaining their survival. The painting's subject, an orphan whose home reportedly burned down after sitting for the portrait, added to the macabre legend. On April 27, 1865, the steamboat Sultana exploded north of Memphis, killing an estimated 1,800 people, more than the Titanic. Recently released Union prisoners from Confederate camps were transported home, with the 376-capacity vessel carrying over 2,400 passengers. 3 of 4 boilers exploded around 2 a.m., collapsing decks and hurling passengers into the frigid Mississippi. Investigation revealed a rushed repair to a cracked boiler and corruption, allowing dangerous overcrowding. The disaster received minimal press coverage, overshadowed by Abraham Lincoln's assassination 2 weeks earlier. Survivors' descendants hold annual reunions, preserving the memory of America's deadliest maritime tragedy. Renaissance women used belladonna, atropa belladonna, eye drops to achieve fashionably dilated pupils, giving eyes a seductive, darkened appearance, hence its name meaning beautiful lady. The alkaloid atropine paralyzes iris muscles, an effect lasting several days. Countless poisonings resulted from cosmetic misuse, causing hallucinations, tachycardia, hyperthermia, and respiratory failure. Other nightshades contain equally dangerous compounds. Mandrake root scopolamine induces amnesia, while deadly nightshade berries cause children's fatalities annually. These plants simultaneously served as medicines and poisons across European history. Modern medicine still uses atropine derivatives for pupil dilation during eye exams, cardiac resuscitation, and as a nerve agent antidote. Peru's Moche civilization, 100 to 750 CE, practiced elaborate human sacrifice at Huaca de la Luna and other pyramid temples. Archaeological evidence reveals captives, primarily young men from rival groups, were systematically bled, their blood collected in goblets, for ritual consumption by priests. Victims' throats were cut with ceremonial copper knives called tumas, after ritualistic preparation. Remarkably preserved murals depict these ceremonies in vivid detail. Physical evidence includes skeletons with cut marks on cervical vertebrae and separated skulls. These rituals responded to El Niño climate disruptions, appeasing deities believed responsible for agricultural stability. The Moche collapse coincided with severe drought periods despite these propitiatory sacrifices. From October 26 to 31, 1948, a temperature inversion trapped industrial emissions from zinc and steel works over Donora, Pennsylvania, creating a lethal sulfuric acid fog. Visibility dropped to 20 feet. Emergency workers strung ropes between buildings to guide residents. 20 people died within days, and another 50 within a month. Nearly 7,000 of the town's 14,000 residents experienced severe respiratory symptoms. The Donora Smog Museum preserves this environmental disaster that directly influenced the Clean Air Act of 1970. Scientists later determined fluoride emissions were particularly significant in the fatalities. The event represented America's first documented air pollution disaster. On October 3, 1849, Edgar Allan Poe was found delirious in Baltimore wearing clothes that weren't his own. Hospitalized for 4 days, he never became coherent enough to explain his condition before dying on October 7th. His attending physician listed congestion of the brain as cause of death, with medical records subsequently lost. Theories include alcoholism, rabies, explaining his hydrophobia, carbon monoxide poisoning, syphilis, cholera, tuberculosis, heart disease, and even cooping, a practice where gangs kidnap victims for repeat voting in elections. Remarkably, even Poe's obituary contained falsehoods, written by literary rival Rufus Griswold to damage his reputation. Between 1957 and 1962, approximately 10,000 thalidomide babies were born worldwide with distinctive limb malformations called phocomelia. The drug, marketed as safe for pregnant women's morning sickness, crossed the placental barrier, disrupting fetal development between days 20 to 36 of pregnancy. FDA medical officer Francis Kelsey prevented U.S. approval, limiting American cases to about 17. German manufacturer Grunenthal issued no apology, and April 2012. Survivors developed remarkable adaptations using feet for traditional hand functions. Thalidomide's tragic legacy transformed pharmaceutical regulations globally, establishing pregnancy risk categories and requiring extensive pre-market testing. The drug now treats multiple myeloma and leprosy under strict controls. A 14-pound spherical plutonium mass, nicknamed the Demon Core, killed 2 Los Alamos scientists 9 months apart during the Manhattan Project. On August 21, 1945, physicist Harry Daghlian accidentally dropped a tungsten carbide brick onto the core, receiving a lethal radiation dose. On May 21, 1946, Louis Slotin demonstrated neutron criticality using a screwdriver to separate beryllium hemispheres when it slipped, initiating a momentary chain reaction. Slotin died 9 days later from acute radiation syndrome. The core was eventually used in the Operation Crossroads nuclear test. These accidents established crucial nuclear safety protocols still used today. Victorian-era mourning jewelry incorporated deceased loved ones' hair into wearable mementos, a practice that peaked after Queen Victoria's intense mourning for Prince Albert. Skilled artisans wove hair into intricate patterns or placed locks inside lockets, brooches, and rings. Some pieces featured braided hair forming flowers, weeping willows, or memorial scenes under glass. The jewelry followed strict mourning protocols: jet black for early mourning, pearls representing tears, and gradually incorporating color as grief subsided. Complete hairwork kits were sold for home use. Museums now preserve these pieces as examples of 19th-century death culture that transformed human remains into enduring symbols of devotion. On May 31, 1921, white mobs attacked Greenwood District, Tulsa's prosperous Black Wall Street, following rumors a black teenager assaulted a white elevator operator. Over 35 city blocks were systematically destroyed, with private aircraft reportedly dropping incendiary devices. Contemporary newspaper accounts documented mass graves, but official death counts listed only 36 fatalities. A 2001 Oklahoma commission concluded at least 300 people died. Insurance companies denied claims, citing riot exclusion clauses. The massacre was deliberately omitted from history books until recent decades. In 2020, archaeologists discovered a mass grave containing at least 12 coffins in Oak Lawn Cemetery, with excavation work continuing to identify victims nearly a century later. Venetian ceruse, a white facial cosmetic containing lead carbonate, became the beauty standard across Renaissance Europe. Noblewomen applied this toxic paste to achieve the coveted pale complexion that signified wealth and refinement. Regular use caused hair loss, tooth decay, and permanently blackened skin, requiring increasingly heavier application to cover damage. Queen Elizabeth I used the product religiously, creating her iconic white-faced image. By her later years, she suffered symptoms consistent with lead poisoning, cognitive decline, muscle weakness, and extreme irritability. The makeup remained fashionable for over 3 centuries despite visible harm, demonstrating beauty's powerful social currency across European history. The tarantella originated in 14th century southern Italy as a supposed cure for tarantism, believed to result from the bite of the Lycosa tarantula spider. Victims exhibited symptoms including intense agitation, spasms, and an uncontrollable urge to dance. Musicians would play increasingly frenzied rhythms as patients danced to induce sweating, thought to expel the venom. Modern science recognizes that European tarantulas aren't dangerously venomous. Symptoms were likely psychosomatic or unrelated conditions. The dance evolved over centuries into various regional forms, with the Neapolitan tarantella becoming the standardized version. Traditional performances still feature rapid 6/8 time and whirling movements reminiscent of the historical cure. On April 1, 1984, one day before his 45th birthday, Motown legend Marvin Gaye was fatally shot by his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., at their Los Angeles home. The shooting followed an argument over an insurance document and long-standing tensions. Gaye had purchased the gun used in the shooting to protect his parents. At trial, Gaye Sr. pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter after doctors discovered he had a brain tumor. He received a suspended 6-year sentence with probation. Gaye's death came as he experienced a career resurgence with his Grammy-winning hit, Sexual Healing. His father died in 1998, reportedly expressing remorse for his actions. The Bermuda Triangle, spanning from Florida to Bermuda to Puerto Rico, has claimed numerous vessels since the USS Cyclops disappeared without distress signals in March 1918, with 309 souls aboard, the largest non-combat loss in U.S. naval history. Scientific explanations include methane gas eruptions from seafloor deposits which reduce water density and cause ships to sink rapidly. Powerful Gulf Stream currents can quickly disperse wreckage. Electronic compass variations occur naturally in the region. Meteorologists have documented air bombs, microbursts dropping at 170 miles per hour, capable of overwhelming vessels. Despite these explanations, search technology has located remarkably few wrecks within this heavily trafficked area. For decades, talc-based baby powder contained naturally occurring asbestos due to the mineral's geological proximity. Internal documents reveal Johnson & Johnson knew about this contamination as early as the 1970s, but failed to warn consumers or regulators. Microscopic asbestos fibers, when inhaled or contacting mucous membranes, can cause mesothelioma, ovarian cancer, and other diseases with latency periods exceeding 20 years. By 2020, the company faced over 19,000 lawsuits, resulting in billions in settlements. In May 2020, Johnson & Johnson discontinued talc-based powder sales in North America, replacing it with cornstarch formulations, though talc products continued selling elsewhere. During production of The Exorcist, 1973, a series of inexplicable incidents fueled rumors of supernatural interference. A fire destroyed most of the set except for the possessed girl's bedroom. Actor Jack McGowan died shortly after completing his scenes. A carpenter lost a thumb, and a lighting technician lost a toe in separate accidents. Ellen Burstyn suffered a permanent spinal injury during a stunt, her scream of real pain remaining in the final film. Several crew members' relatives died unexpectedly during filming. Director William Friedkin brought a priest to bless the set multiple times. Despite, or perhaps because of, these occurrences, the film became one of cinema's most influential horror classics. In Imperial China, upper-class women's bound feet, called golden lotuses, when achieving the ideal 3-inch length, were sometimes preserved after death through specialized embalming. The process involved removing blood, treating with chemicals including mercury compounds, and wrapping in silk before placement in miniature embroidered shoes. This preservation symbolized eternal beauty and status, as bound feet represented the ultimate feminine refinement. Archaeological discoveries from Ming and Qing dynasty tombs have revealed examples with intact tissue and nail structure. The practice continued until foot binding was outlawed in the early 20th century, preserving physical evidence of this thousand-year tradition. Electronic voice phenomena, EVP research began in the 1950s when Friedrich Jurgensen discovered unexplained voices on recorded bird songs. These anomalous sounds, inaudible during recording but present on playback, often contain what appear to be coherent responses to questions. Modern investigators use specialized devices including spirit boxes which rapidly scan radio frequencies. Scientific explanations include apophenia, finding patterns in random stimuli, radio interference, and equipment artifacts. Parapsychologist Konstantin Raudiv documented over 100,000 recordings before his death in 1974, believing these represented communication from deceased individuals. EVP research continues as a cornerstone of contemporary paranormal investigation methodologies. Victorian homes featured vibrant green wallpapers colored with copper arsenite, Scheele's green, invented in 1775. When these papers became damp, mold converted the arsenic compounds into trimethylarsine gas, slowly poisoning inhabitants. Symptoms included chronic headaches, respiratory problems, and skin lesions. British designer William Morris produced some of the most popular arsenic wallpapers despite growing evidence of their dangers. A single room could contain up to 900 grams of arsenic. Scientists now believe arsenic poisoning may explain Napoleon Bonaparte's death, as his St. Helena exile home featured green wallpaper that revealed high arsenic levels when tested in the 1980s. In August 2005, one of 4 surviving pairs of ruby slippers worn by Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz was stolen from the Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. The thieves smashed a display case, taking only the slippers and leaving no fingerprints. For 13 years, the case remained unsolved until an FBI sting operation recovered them in Minneapolis. Insured for $1 million but valued at $2 to $3 million, the slippers contain about 2,300 sequins and took conservators 200 hours to restore after recovery. Their theft and recovery highlight the extraordinary measures taken by collectors of Hollywood memorabilia. In January 1923, Rosewood, a prosperous African-American community in Florida, was obliterated after a white woman falsely claimed assault by a black man. Armed white mobs from surrounding areas descended on Rosewood, burning buildings and hunting residents who fled to nearby swamps. Historical records confirm at least 6 black residents and 2 white attackers died, though survivors reported dozens more fatalities. Rosewood was abandoned and deliberately erased from maps. Survivors maintained silence for decades until 1994, when Florida became the first state to compensate victims of racial violence, awarding $2.1 million to 9 survivors and dozens of descendants. In the 18th and 19th centuries, hatmakers used mercuric nitrate to transform fur into felt, a process called carroting. Workers absorbed mercury through their skin and inhaled toxic vapors, developing neurological symptoms including tremors, slurred speech, and erratic behavior. Hence the phrase, mad as a hatter. The condition, medically termed erothism, also caused hallucinations and personality changes. Lewis Carroll immortalized these symptoms in his character the Mad Hatter. Despite mounting evidence of mercury's dangers, the practice continued into the early 20th century before safer alternatives were mandated, leaving generations of hatters to suffer this occupational disease. Despite exhaustive archaeological efforts spanning centuries, Cleopatra VII's tomb remains undiscovered. The last Ptolemaic ruler of Egypt reportedly arranged her burial alongside Mark Antony after their self-harm in 30 BCE. Ancient writers described a monument near Alexandria, but earthquakes and coastal subsidence have dramatically altered the landscape. Recent underwater excavations at Taposiris Magna revealed temple foundations and royal artifacts, suggesting potential burial sites. Ground-penetrating radar has identified subterranean chambers worthy of investigation. If found, Cleopatra's tomb would represent one of archaeology's greatest discoveries, potentially revealing treasures and texts from this pivotal historical period. Born May 28, 1934 in Ontario, the Dion quintuplets, Yvonne, Annette, Cécile, Emily, and Marie, were the first quintuplets known to survive infancy. The Canadian government removed them from their parents, making them wards of the state and exhibiting them in Quintland, where over 3 million tourists watched them through one-way glass. This exploitation caused lasting psychological trauma. 3 sisters published a memoir in 1995 titled "We Were Not the Happy Family," revealing their struggles. Only 2 sisters, Annette and Cécile, survive today, having reconciled with their family in later years.